And fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so thanks again for those that have joined us today. And thank you very much, TJ, for being part of this. Really appreciate it. I probably should have asked you before you joined, but did you have a presentation or did you want to run a Q&A? What would you be more comfortable with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a Sunday, so I'm going to go off the cuff, right? Maybe give me around about 10 minutes or so, just to share my story and to share my journey of where I come from and where I am. And the reason that got me here. And probably we can then do a little bit of questions and answers. How much time do you want to spend?
Yeah, we've got up until 7 o'clock, so the next hour. So okay. Feel free to go for it.
Okay, cool. So for some of you, you might have, heard about me or know about me, but I'm going to assume that everybody who's in the room totally knows nothing about me. And thanks for listening to me. Not so many people actually listen to me. My own wife's cat doesn't listen to me. So it's good that you guys are going to be listening to me. And I'm hoping that by the end of this session, at least you can take away some stuff out of it. So I grew up, so from the time that I just want to talk to you about probably just before I was born. And some of you might relate to this and some of you might not. But the bottom line is that when my mother was pregnant, around about 3 months or so, my father then decided to leave. And I assumed that the conversation was kind of like, oops, babe, I'm a little bit pregnant. And my father then, my biological father, then kind of like just skipped. So my mother carried me, and roundabout when I was born, 2 months later, my mother also decided to leave and she skipped town. And for some of you, you might know Highfields. So I was dropped off in the early 80s. So my mother abandoned me in a small stadium that's called Mazigo, if some of you would know it. And that's where literally I was dropped off. So it's a small stadium, community stadium, kind of like. And before she had dumped me, she had actually tried to sell me to someone else. And as God does it, it so happened that the same person picked me up. And they realized that there's a child there, and it was because of the shower that I was raped in. And my grandmother at the time had a market in an area called Machipisa, which is literally about maybe 10-minute walk from Mazigo. And so this lady picked me up, took me to my grandmother and said, look, I've just picked up this baby, but I'm not so sure whether your daughter has, I'm not so sure. But obviously at the time, it was totally unheard of dumping kids. So my grandmother took me in at the time. She had about 10 kids of her own. And my biological mother is the last born. But my grandmother couldn't take me in for long because at the time I became very sickly. And then I was raised with foster parents. My foster parents, they were very good people up until today. I grew up with those two, and my father is now late, which is my foster father. And the first time I met my biological father, I was around about 30. I'd known of him, but I didn't know about him. So I met him, and I met him when I'd actually migrated here in South Africa, and I also realized that he was here in South Africa. And I remember at the time when I met him, I was highly prepared. And when I mean highly prepared, I had had so many conversations with myself that I had so many questions that I wanted to ask him. So the day that we actually met, it was at a local restaurant called Mag and Bean. And he said to me, he's coming down. And I agreed, and I said, no, I'm going to pay the bill after we had breakfast. Then I started firing questions. And in the conversation of about an hour or 2 hours, I then realized this guy is a coward. And I realized this guy has no respect for other people. At the time, he was also trying to tell me that, look, where you are in life is not a good space. We should be going to the UK, and everything that you're doing is not right. And I was thinking, flip, bruh, it's been 30 years and you just coming into my life now and you want to tell me how to run my life. I've got a child, I've got a wife, and you're not even apologetic for the fact that you were not there for 30 years. What the hell? But as life became, I realized that I am one of 16 kids. And I know about maybe about 3 of those kids. And I realized that he has only been married once. So I'm always telling my wife that I'm highly talented. It's within my genes. She mustn't treat me bad because again, I've got a spirit of a wandering soul, because on my mother's side, my mother also became the same thing because she's got 4 kids, excluding myself, and those 4 kids come from different men. Now, when I look at all of that, I think somewhere along the line, I became the best child of the 2 of them. And the reason why I say that is because of the character that I tend to be. And the reason I say that is because of the person that I've become. All of their other kids, which happens to be 20 kids now, all in total, obviously from all different people, all of them are none of them are good people, so to speak. It's either they've been in and out of jail, they've been involved in all sorts of stuff. So I'm the only child who's kind of like a child, you know. I hope that makes sense. But with that, I started doing life. And like any other person, you know, I went to school. From going to school, I got the good grades. And from getting the good grades, I realized that I am the only son between my 2 parents, and these 2 actually had no interest in me. And for that reason, I actually identified the fact that, my generation actually starts with me, or should I say my family tree is starting with me, even though I had foster parents. But my foster parents had their own dreams of what they wanted to do. But my family tree actually starts with me because there's no one else that I can go back to. If I go back to my dad, my biological father, well, he didn't want me, or he wanted a different life altogether for me. If I go through to my biological mother, she is totally of a different person. She's never raised me, so we can't relate. So where do I start from? And I realized it actually starts with me. I think I started realizing that in my mid-20s. And with that, I started searching for how best can I become more? How best can I be a better person? And from an early age of that, I started going out to understand into different seminars, coming into groups like this one. And all of this, I was just trying to build my own character. Up until to a point, I think church became a place for me, because a good place for me, because I think at the time, my lead pastor, he had actually spoken the fact that he was raised with a single parent. So I kind of like related to him. But this guy is around about 60, he's going into his 70s now. And I just hang on to some of a lot of his teaching over the years. And he was my first teacher. So if you're taking notes here, the one thing that I would like to encourage you is that find teachers. There are so many teachers out there. And sometimes the teachers are either you are learning from what they're doing better, or you're learning from what they're doing worse. So from my biological father and my biological parents, I literally learned how to become a parent, right? So at around about, I think 26, 27, I had my first son, and life didn't turn out the way I wanted to turn out with his mother. and we separated. But I fought up until now, today. I fought tooth and nail for me to have access to him. That's number one. Number two, for me to be able to look after him. And as I speak right now, we were just cuddling together at the couch. He's 13, and we were just doing life. Does it come easy? No, it doesn't come easy. I have so much baby mama troubles, it's not even funny. Now, the more that you become a little bit wealthier, the baby mama issues just continue. I'm just telling you what life is all about. I'm one of those guys who are very transparent, and the reason why I want to be transparent is that you can see that even though when there's a little bit of money, or a little bit more as you might think it to be, there is general life issues that will always be there. And you always need to find solutions as a person, as a man, or even as a woman, right? So having said that, I then got married around about 11 years ago. And like I did say, I envied to be a better parent. And from there, I've been married up until around about now. I've got a beautiful wife, and we've got one child. So together now we've got 2 kids, and both of our 2 kids, they totally love each other. We are always together, and we're always putting on small holidays together so that the 2 can always be engaged. But all of that, I also realized that I need to provide a little bit more from what the employer was giving me. I migrated to South Africa. From migrating into South Africa, I started working into Africa. So I worked a lot in African countries outside South Africa. And that's when the hunger of wanting to do more started. So the first thing that I did is I was employed. I started doing a different business. So I started a small business that was a car rental business. At the time, Uber was not a thing, and I took money out of that. And over and above that, I went into chickens, and then I lost some money into chickens. I lost around about 9 million rand, South African rand. Muzi can do the translation there. It's that's around about how much would that be in pounds? Muzi, you can do the translation there. So it's divided by 20, right? At the moment, I think. So with that, my wife could have left me, but she stuck around. We went through that storm, and eventually, by the time we sold off the farm and some of the other assets in the car rental business that we had, I was in 5 million rand debt. But at the time, the farm at a point, it was actually picking up, so it was doing very well. So I was trying to figure out, where can I plug in some of this money? And then I came across the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. Actually, my wife bought the book for me, but I didn't read it the first time. And basically what happened, another friend of mine at work gave me another book. I think it's the 4 quadrants. The cash flow, I think it's called. I'm just trying to reach out to it here. And he gave that book to me, and I came back home and I said to my wife, "Hey, have you read this book?" And she says to me, "But I've given you that book." And basically what happened was I then went on to read this book here in one night, and I started reading it around about 9 o'clock. At 4 in the morning, I was done. And my life changed from there. If you've never read this book, I suggest it's one of those key books that will literally open up your mind. As it may, I started searching over the internet or, about Robert Kiyosaki, and I dove into a lot of his teachings, and I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki. So I practice quite a lot of his stuff that he teaches. Now, I am down and out in 5 million. And I'm trying to figure out how best can I work around my 5 million. And in the class of that weekend, and this is exactly 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I was in a class and I was learning how to do property. I had bought a farm. I had bought the house that we stay in at the moment. My wife had her own 2-bed, 1-bedroom. And I had my one at the time. So 4 properties, but none of them were cash flowing. So cash flowing, for some of you that don't know, cash flowing just basically means that, it's a property that's giving you profit. Okay. So at the time, none of those four properties are giving us any cash flow. So we don't have assets. We've got liabilities that we've got because we're paying in, right? And whilst I was in that class, I then realized I don't need money to buy properties. And everything else that I had done before was more around thinking of, I think I need to get money so that I can go and buy properties, which was my passion. But in that class, I then realized, no, Taurai, you don't need money. There is what they call other people's money. And I'm like, okay. And from that day on, and this is something that I want to share with you guys, the guys that were teaching me in the class exactly 5 years ago, they were all British. And the drive in terms of the content that was in the class was very much British content. So it's kind of like you're learning and you need to be translating, right? So, for those that are taking notes, sometimes it might take a little bit of translation for things that you think does not exist in your market, or for things that you think it doesn't exist within your sphere. So when you hear some things being said and how they're saying it, the question that you should be asking is, can it be done? If you ask the question to yourself, say, can it be done? And if you don't know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's maybe a scam. It doesn't necessarily mean that it can be done. It just basically means that you don't know, right? So you can never do something that you don't know. So what is the thing there? The thing is expose yourself to as many things, and then that way start to translate some of those things into where you are at the moment and where exactly do you want to go? Because the gap could be in the translation. Translation could be meeting someone else that who has done it before. Translation could be going into a professional person, a lawyer or something like that. And I spent about a year and a half listening to the British content and going to local lawyers and asking, can this be done? They speak of seller finance. Can it be done in South Africa? And all of those answers were yes, but the language and the terminologies was different. And out of that, I joined my first partner. Her name is Rita, and she had just left her employer at the time. Now, I met her in a class. So people are always asking the question, where do you meet business partners? For me, I met my one in a class. I met my one in a community like this one where I was learning, and I asked the question, what are you busy with? And she says, I'm struggling. And I was like, what are you struggling with? Finding properties. And you guys know it as sourcing. And from my end, I was like, what do you mean? I have properties like coming out of my ears. My challenge is finding money. And she's like, hold on. You know what? I have people that are entrusting me with money, and a lot of them are resigning because they've been working for 10 or 30 years in the consulting world, and a lot of them are moving to the UK or to the US. So they don't want to take their money. So I've got an roundabout access to roundabout maybe about 20 to 30 million rand at the moment. I just need to find the deals. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is a marriage. It was not orchestrated. I didn't know this person. And we came together. She was based in Cape Town. I'm based in Johannesburg. And this is something else that I also want to say to you. Sometimes the opportunity lies in you taking an action to understand a little bit deeper. That Christmas, I said to my wife, we need to go and spend time with these guys. So we took a holiday to Cape Town. When we took a holiday to Cape Town, our families are literally a mirror of each other. I've got a 13-year-old, she's got a 13-year-old. I've got a 6-year-old, she's got a 6-year-old. I'm married and she's also married. And boom, we started a pilot 5 years ago. From that 5 years ago, we both realized that we enjoy learning and we go to classes together all the time. Now, fast forward to where I am today, we now have a business that is called the M5 Property Addicts, where it is now a fund, right? We are changing the name in 2022. It's going to be called the M5 Global. And the obvious is we're going international. That's the obvious why we're changing the name. And basically M5 Property Addicts, you can Google us. We are on YouTube. We're everywhere. But the bottom line is that, number one, we came together as students. Number two, we have continued being students. Number three, we are taking action. Four, we are continuously asking the question to say, how can we do things better? Number five, we're not scared to jump into relationships with the other people outside the two of us. So at the moment, the business M5 Property Addicts, I've got 5 core partners. Of these 5 people, I'm the CEO. The one is very much of a background in accounting. The other one is a background in legal, and the other one is a developer, and the other one is an operations person. Now, out of that, because now we are a fund, I am managing now just below 100 million at the moment, just below 100 million. We're probably shy maybe about 300-400, just around about 3 to 4 million in terms of getting us to 100 million. I was doing the numbers last week. That is all assets, that is all money that we have fundraised, which means that our assets value is bigger than that. And what do? We do 3 things. The first one is that we do student accommodation. 2 years ago, we didn't know how to do student accommodation. My partner called me and she says, TJ, let's go into student accommodation. I was like, hell no, we're not doing student accommodation. Those little brats are going to do ABCD in our properties. They're going to run them down and all of those things. We're already struggling with affordable housing. No, let's not do it. And she says to me, but what about if we go and learn student accommodation from someone? And I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. Let's do that. We went to learn about student accommodation. Today, we're doing 350 students in 3 cities. We are in a small town called Potchefstroom. We are in Cape Town, and we are in another small town called Durban. Out of learning, we implemented. We've got 2 buildings that we're busy with now. By the 2022 intake, we're going to be on 580 beds. Now, you could be saying to yourself, TJ, South Africa, I think this is cool. I think I might not need to migrate to South Africa. Hold on, before you throw in your passports. I started small. My first deal was a 2-bed, 1-bath. My first deal was a 2-bed, 1-bath. I bought it for 160,000, renovated it for 50. We were renting it out for 5,000. If you do the maths, we were cash flowing. Start small, learn fast, grow fast. The moment you're going to be learning the moment you're going to implement something small, you're going to learn a whole lot within the process. When you are in real estate, the challenges in real estate are not in the buying. The buying is an event. It happens once, but you make money in managing the process of the asset. So if you don't understand how to manage the asset, you're going to lose money. I've lost money, by the way. Not all my deals have given me money. No, I have lost money. Right. But within the losing, that's where you learn. You don't learn when things are going well. When things are going well, it's good. When you lose, that's when you learn, because the processes are not there. So I've got a very good key man who's my crew. And basically this guy, He is there to manage my business. As a crew, his job is to manage all of the operations. I sit with him 3 times a week, 2 hours. What's working there? What's working there? What's not working there? How best can we change it? I change my mind every other week as a CEO. He hates me. But it's changing the way we do things to improve it. You probably do this at your current employer. What I'm talking about right now, some of you are doing it at your current employer. I've just taken that and I've put it into a business, the one that I own, right? Now, coming back to students' accommodation, a few years ago, about 2.5 years ago, we knew nothing about student accommodation. And now we've got, the intake for 22, we're on just about 500. Now, you could be thinking that, oh, so student accommodation works in South Africa. No. We had to learn to go and see what the competition is doing. And we looked at ourselves and say, what can we bring in that's different? So in our student accommodation, very particularly what we do. Number one, we like first years. Why do we like first years? Because they are going to be at our place for the next 3 to 4 years. What do we do with our first years? We create a home away from home. So we give them a house mother and a house father. Every building of ours, we've got a ratio of 22, well, it's 10 to 1, so it's kind of like 20 to 2. Why do we do that? They are first years. They don't know much about life. They're coming from home, right? We give them second to third years as their big brother. So we help with homeworks. It's scheduled. We help them with chores. So if you're coming into our places, there's going to be chores. So I'm giving you the secret sauce here in terms of our student accommodation, right? We help with scheduling out things like simple things like exercises. We create a camaraderie within the house. So we are very intentional on what happens. So we looked at ourselves and we said, we both have 13-year-olds. If we were to have a child who is going to be staying in our student accommodation, what are the things that we will do? And literally, we created that as a product, right? Now, so that's the first thing that we do, student accommodation. The second thing that we do as a business, we do what is called affordable housing. So affordable housing is for the middle class. And for us, at the moment, we are doing around about 200 tenants. And 5 years ago, the tenants that we have between my wife and I was 2 tenants, and both of those tenants, we were putting in money. The 200 tenants that I'm talking about, they are all cash flowing projects. Yes, in some of those buildings, there's issues. Yes, in some of those buildings, not everyone is paying rent, but according to the national stats, I'm above that. So I'm doing well. But did it start like that? No. I started off in class. I took action. And at the moment, with the monies that we are, as a fund, the money that we are collecting from people, so people invest in our business and we go out to do the work. And obviously the assets belongs to us. And we do a simple strategy that's called the BRRR strategy. I'm sure a lot of you would know that. And the BRRR strategy is very simple. I'm going to get R1 million from all of you. And out of that, I'm going to buy my assets. When I buy that assets, I'll improve it. So that's buy. So, and then I renovate, right? When I renovate that, I'm going to rent it out. When I rent it out, I am going to go to the bank and then I'm going to ask for finance at the bank. And when I do that, I repay you your 1 million. I stay with the asset. Simple. Anyone here can do that. It is not complicated at all. It is about working through your numbers right at the beginning before you jump into a project, finding the right people that you know that for a fact. I don't remember the last time I was at a site actually to manage a project. I don't. Maybe it's 2 years ago or so. I go on a site just to see whether the construction, just to manage culture with the team, right? But am I special? No. Not so long ago, I was abandoned in a stadium. Not so long ago, my own parents didn't want me as a child. I know for a fact, they're like, this is our best son now. I don't care about them no more at the moment. But I'm just doing life. I'm just doing my life at the moment. Now, why do I share all of this with you? I share this all of you because you may be in a better position on where you are right now, on starting off. So the thing that's holding you back is probably you, nobody else. There is nobody else who is stopping you but you. You could be thinking that, Taurai, you don't understand. Me, when I came to the UK or when I'm now in the US, things were tight. Hey, the same thing was for me in South Africa. Maybe, Taurai, it's all excuses. I'm just going to be that guy who's just going to tell you straight up, it's all excuses. You can do it. So my job today is hopefully that my story probably has inspired you a little bit, but it's not, Muzi didn't call me to inspire you. He knows that I'm doing this. He's been in my circle. We invited Muzi at one of our conferences. He saw the vibe with the people that are there. At the moment, as I speak now, at the beginning of the year, I decided I don't want to do what I'm doing on my own. So I'm going to open a franchise of the same thing that I'm doing, but I'm going to franchise it. So a lot of you know what a franchise is. Exactly opening up exactly what you do so that someone else can do it, right? And I've got 30 guys. And all these 30 guys are from women to men, of old, young, and they are starting off their own businesses and they are driving their own businesses. My job is to train them on what I have done and what I am doing and to show them the ropes, and they go and run their own businesses, and I just own 20% of that. Simple. Right? What am I doing now? I am building a bigger force that's bigger than me. Why? Now it's no longer about property, it's about building people. That's what I'm doing. That's my job. Someone else couldn't build me from when I was born. It doesn't matter. My job now is to build others. Awesome. I'm going to end it here. And I'm hoping that, you guys have been fired up and Monday can be a different Monday for you. And back in the days, I never used to have a Saturday and a Sunday. I used to grind all the time. These days, I do have a little bit of a Sunday and I don't touch my phone at all on a Sunday. My co the other day says to me, TJ, I struggle to get hold of you on the weekends. And I was like, yeah, but that's a sign that you need to step up as the CEO during the weekend. He says, but what if we building beds? And I'm like, am I the fire brigade? I'm not. You call the fire brigade, they'll burn it down. And you're the cool, you give a report. Let me spend some time with the kids a little bit. But my Monday to Thursday, I am totally on the grind. I'm on the grind from around about 5 in the morning all the way to around about 11. And Saturday, I am down and out. Sunday, it's very rare. And for me to be here today, I thought, Muzi, it's only for Muzi. That's what I can say. But anyway, good. I'm on my second book. My first book is called From Bad Day to Property Mogul. And I'm just about to release. It's going to print, I think, within this week, the electronic version of my new book that's going to be called Be the First Millionaire in your family, it's coming out. So yeah, when it comes out, yeah, we'll facilitate that you guys also have that. The fundamentals and the principles are the same. I learned from the British when they were here via Robert Kiyosaki, and I've been implementing the stuff. I am localizing it into African, South Africa to be precise. You guys can still take the same and implement it in your life. Muzi, thanks a lot for having me.
Wow, wow, wow. Let me be the first one to say thank you very much for sharing that amazing story. And I'm fortunate enough to have heard the story. I didn't actually know some of the information that you shared there, so I'm actually quite genuinely wowed as well. So thank you very much for that. I'm just going to tell the guys that are listening to just populate your questions in the chat, and I can just start asking some of your questions there. If we need clarity, we'll ask you to unmute, but I'm going to start off with 3 of my own questions. As the host of the group, I have the pleasure of being the first one to ask some questions, TJ. So there's a question that I thought I was going to say for last, but I'm actually going to ask it first because that's the one I'm actually more interested in. You shared your story about where you were and how you started, your childhood story, which is a great story. Sounds like a very difficult experience to have started from there, but then to get to where you are now, I think it must have taken a lot of work. I mean, as a child, you probably didn't have much control in what was happening, so you just had to depend on whoever or whatever was going on at the time. But to be in your position now and mentally go through that process again and still find strength to keep going and be as successful as you are now, I think it's absolutely commendable. And you've already touched on the answer to this question, but what would you say to someone who's in a position now thinking, you know, I've had a bad start, or I've got bad luck, or something is stopping me from doing something, or this doesn't quite work for me because of my history or whatnot. You've been through some difficult times. You must have some good experience. What would you say to someone thinking that now?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking, so I've just moved into a new office from at home. I'm just making some changes at home, so I've just moved in. And I am looking for a book here of a guy called John Keel. And John Keel writes a book that's called The Mind Power, right? I started learning from this guy around maybe about 8 years ago. But John Keel is very much heavy around how to harness your mind. So the stuff that you tell yourself is just in your mind. What is physically happening and what is happening in your mind is 2 different things. So with that, you need to figure out as an individual, if your background is your background. At the moment, I have no power at all to change my background. I can't. Nobody here can change your background. You might have been abused or whatever that happened. Nobody can change that. But you can change the way you see yourself from today. And that change does not manifest today. It starts manifesting tomorrow. I want to give you guys an example. Exactly maybe about 30 years ago, I found this out because of the changes that we're doing in the house. So some of my stuff was in the garage, some of the stuff was in the cupboards. And I was going through some of my paperwork, and I should have been around about 18 or 16, somewhere there. I'd come to South Africa for the first time, and I had seen a complex for the first time. I'd never seen it in Harare. No way had I seen it. And I drew a picture of a complex, and I wanted to own that. And I was saying to myself, I'm gonna stay in one house, and the other houses will pay me. That was just a dream. And the dream, I had it then. I forgot about it, right? For a good maybe 10, 15 years. But the mind always works through to find ways into the place where you have told it to be. So number one, the mind is like a garden. You need to cultivate it. So if you see yourself as being abused, as a victim, as that's what you're cultivating. If you see yourself as a winner, and if you see yourself as great, if you tell yourself how awesome, how amazing you are, so it shall be in the future. It will grow. Will it grow as big as my mind? Well, depends on how well you're feeding it, right? Now, you can all be saying, hey, Taurai, this thing is now deep that you're talking about. It's okay. I met John Keogh for the first time with a local guy called Robin Banks. And Robin Banks his energy was just a little bit too much for me. So he kind of like went over the whelm for me, you know. And with that, I didn't grasp the content or the information or the principles. It literally just went over the whelm for me. And then 5 years later, when I was hungry, you ever had the term, when the student is ready, the teachers will appear? When I was hungry, this information here started making sense. Do I do everything that's in this book? No. I've got maybe about 3 that I do. I'm heavy on affirmations because of my background of knowing that I'm nothing. I come from nothing. So I affirm myself all the time. I affirm myself via the phone. So I put affirmations on my phone that affirm me of who I want to be. Each time my phone beeps on something else, I'm reading that affirmation. I am great. I am awesome. I am joyful, right? And there's many other things that they speak about, visualization and things like that. I have seen myself in places where I want to be. And when I see myself there, it's not by accident, I visualized it. Does it become easier from visualization to realization? Oh no, there's so many pains in between. Mm-hmm. I visualize myself being in Cape Town at a holiday resort. And I had seen it in a magazine. And about 8 years later, my wife picked the holiday destination. I didn't. And when I was there, it was like a deja vu. I was like, flip, I was here. I know this place. But I was there in my mind. So all of us, we all have baggage. We all have bad stuff that we come with. It's about how do we harness that into positive, and how do we harness that to help ourselves grow? And also, how do you put the action besides just treating your mind? So treating your mind is one thing, but also putting in the action to go and view properties, to go and put offers on the properties, to get the multiple no's and just pushing and pushing until you get to a yes. And that's what I can say.
Wow. Okay, the reason I actually am more intrigued in this is because we recently were talking about the fact that in pretty much any business, we're talking about property, but pretty much any business, there is a lot of focus on skills, stats, numbers, and that is important. But then there's an element that a lot of people completely ignore, and that's the mindset. What do you tell yourself every day? And I love the fact that you really, really touched on it with the combination of your story as well. And that makes it so powerful. So thank you very much for sharing that. Just a reminder for the guys, if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat, please, and I'll ask them for you. Good. So my next question, going into property a bit more now, you mentioned that you're your joint venture partnership actually started in a classroom and you were learning something. So firstly, were you actually looking for a joint venture partner or not? Or did that just happen? And if you were to kind of go back intentionally looking for a joint venture partner, what skills or attributes would you be looking for?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. So remember when I went into class, when I registered for it, I had money. I registered sometime in July or so at a free seminar. And out of that, by the time the class actually happened, that was in December, round about September, October, Popo had hit the fan. That's when I was losing everything. So I knew at the time that I was in debt of around about 9 million. I was still trying to figure it out with the banks. Fortunately, I was working for the banks, so they didn't repossess or, you know, foreclose on me. That was my only win of not being repossessed. But when I was in class, I started understanding that there's these people that are called investors. Now, the people that are called investors, because I was working at the bank, I understood the concept, but maybe I was a little bit naive, or I just understood it from a bank's perspective. So I knew that at any given time, once a year at the bank, the shareholders would come, and I understood that it was the shareholders that would come. And at any given time when the shareholders were coming, there were people that were in suits, there were people that were well respected, big names. So when they were talking about investors in the class, I always, that's where my mind went to say, that's an investor. That was my default thinking. So in the class, I was not looking for an investor or a partner, but I knew for a fact that I was down and out on 5 million at the time. And I knew that there was there's no bank who could finance me. So I gravitated to two things. I gravitated to these investors. I wanted to know more about them. I gravitated to sourcing. And those are the two things. By the way, if you're into sourcing, anyone who's into sourcing here, I just want to affirm to you that whoever who's got the deal, you are in power. So you can decide what to do with your deal. When I figured that out, then I realized that, oh, if I've got a deal, I can go to Netai. And I say, Netai, hey, I've got this deal here. Do you want to be my joint venture partner? And if she says yes, I'm like, okay, great. I want in 20%. If she says, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to go to Essie. And Essie, I'm like, Essie, I've got this deal here. I'm on 30%. I want 30% on here. I might go to Gail. By the time I get put to Pauline, I'm on 50%. Right? But now, when I started at Netai, I didn't have the deal. When I started at Netai, I just had the thinking or a prospectus of the deal. Now, for those of you that are always looking at sourcing for deals, source for the same stuff all the time, so that when the right deal comes through, you've got Netai on the speed dial, you've got Essie on the speed dial, you've got Pauline on the speed dial. So if any deal comes through, you have 3 investors lined up. So at any given time, so who are you going to go to at the end of the day? You go with the one who's going to give you a 50% or a 60%. Now I'm a little bit cheeky. I don't even offer partnership. I just say, I want your money. I don't need your partnership. Right. So if I'm to look back, I think I understood the concept of the power of being a sourcing agent. I understood that very early, which was good, which is what I've just demonstrated now. And with that, it gives you the power to say, who can you joint venture with, which is exactly what happened in the class. Because in the class, when I was talking to Rita, she says to me, dude, so what can you do? And I was like, no, I can source the deals. And she says, I've got the money. So I'm like, okay, fine. If you got the money, but if you don't have the deals, what do you have? Nothing, right? I've got the deals. I can do the work. And I said to her, look, we're going to do 50-50 on this. And in hindsight, I should have asked for the 51%. But I'm good with this. She's been a good partner to me. We're building amazing business, so I'm okay with that.
Awesome. Awesome. That is brilliant. So this is just sort of as a reminder to people, because we talk about this every time really, in terms of any event that you go to, whether it's virtual or physical, you never know what you're going to find out there. So listen into other people's stories, because you might find a joint venture partner, you might find an investor, and just like how you're presenting it, that there is no template of what an investor looks like. Just treat them all the same, because you don't know who's got money and who hasn't got money. So thanks for sharing that. My last question, because I can see questions coming through now, which is great. My last one is about, you touched on the fun principle of OPM, the use of other people's money, because this seems to be a foreign concept to a lot of people. Why on earth would anyone actually give you their money? So I want to know, which I think I know the answer to this. You've built a really successful business now, and we all know you're making a bit of money. Do you still use other people's money, or do you invest with your own?
You remember that first deal of mine that I bought for 160,000 that I shared on 2-bed, 1-bath. I had to put in 1,000 Rand as a deposit for that property. And 94 million Rand later, that is the only money that I've ever put in a property.
Love it.
Now you asked me the question, should I do the business with my own money? No, it's cheaper for me to use other people's monies. And when you're talking about other people's money, I want to maybe give you guys context of what is other people's money. So I use it in different ways. So Tendai looks like she could be a medical someone. So she has no time to do what I do, but she's got the money, right? So I can promise Tendai a certain rate, or I can promise Tendai a split in profits. She's got the money, I have the resources, I have the time, I've got the skill. So that's number one. Now, because a lot of times we are wanting to find other people's money, we're like, but where are you going to find other people's money? It's not about the money, it's who is giving you the money. Why are they not able to do it themselves? So at the moment, a lot of, I'm going to talk from a South African perspective. A lot of our medical people are under pressure because of the pandemic. But the pressures that they're getting more money. And those that are wanting to be in the real estate, they know that at the moment they're getting a 4% at the bank. I'm giving them 14% on my fund. So who are my best clients at the moment, right now? People in the medical field. Because they are under the pressure to be at work, but they want to get their money work harder for them. So that's number one, hard cash, right? There's lots of people that are going to jump into money and they have no idea what to do with it. These people exist, right? It can be a wife. Within this pandemic, people are dying. So policies are paying out a lot. Shame on the insurance people. So with that, when this money becomes available to an uneducated wife or uneducated dude who just inherited from a father who just died, if they're in my network, I'm going to put their money to work. That's number one. Number two, the same people could be earning quite a lot of money. So from a bank perspective, they carry a lot of affordability. So for just putting in their surety, I can give them money for that. So I can go in a deal and I can give them a lump sum, or I can give them on a monthly basis. And I can take an insurance against that as a life policy if I ever don't perform or if something happens to them. But the deal needs to carry all of that. Right? I mean, this is some of the things that we teach in our franchise school for the guys that are really doing business. So it's not about money. It's about just figuring out how do you connect the people to the deals, right? Then the third one of other people's money is, so we've spoken about cash, we've spoken about the surety at the banks. And then the third one is that there's some very clever people like Stanley, who's on here. Stanley just has that flair of having people around him. So I'm going to teach Stanley how to crowdfund. So Stanley is going to bring 10 people. 10 people are going to raise 10,000 pounds each. And Stanley is the driver, and we'll put that 100,000 pounds to work on a deal. I'm not doing the work or finding those people. Stanley is, because Stanley is that guy, but I'm not. So I'll partner up with him, and he's the conduit. So there's many ways in which you can do it. The bottom line is that at the end of the day, you need to make sure that that money is going to work on the right deals, and you're going to make money, your investors are going to make money. When they start hitting success, they start running to you now. You know, for the gents that are in the room, it's like when you are like 16, 17, you're all like looking for chicks. Hi, how's it going? And nobody wants to speak to you. Then you get married, like all the chicks likes you now. Right. So yeah.
That is brilliant. Okay. So the reason, again, I was asking about other people's money is because I know you were still using other people's money. It's usually a concept used by some trainers talking about the fact that, well, if you don't have money to start with, you can use other people's money. It's presented as a concept to get started. But I love the fact that even once you are successful and you're making your own money, you still prefer to use other people's money. And that's not necessarily just to protect your own, but it's also to actually present opportunities to other people. You are actually helping people by using their money. And I love how you presented it from the people in the health sector, especially. There are loads of people that have money and want to put it to use, but they don't have the time or the knowledge, and that's where you come in. So this is sort of an example to other people who are thinking this is not possible. I love the fact that Taurai has actually pointed it out. So I'll just come into the questions. I'll go all the way back. The first question that I actually saw was from Kathy. Kathy says, here to learn and find out how to open bank accounts in South Africa after purchasing a property. If you could help me with that, please, Taurai.
And is this person, is this like maybe let's just do a quick test here, right? Is this a challenge for many people? And if that's a challenge for you as a person, just give me a thumbs up, so that we can either address it here, or I can do a one-on-one with those person, or send them to my team members for that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask Kathy if I can see some thumbs up here. If Kathy is still here, feel free to unmute.
Oh, okay. Yes, so it's just following the purchase of the property, how do you then open the account so rentals can come in? Because we're not based in South Africa, but looking to invest, and yeah, just so the whole business account for the tax purposes.
Okay, all right, cool. So I think let me deviate a little bit from Kathy's scenario. I'll answer it in the process. The first thing is that a lot of us, we are hungry and we want to own properties. I'm going to say, stop it, don't do that. What you need to be doing is, number one, all of you guys that are here, you are either an African descent of sorts. I don't know where you guys are from, a lot of you. But become an international citizen, become a global citizen. How do you do that? You become a global citizen by registering a company somewhere. It doesn't matter where. So you live in a company. Okay. Now, for me, my structure is a little bit different from that. So I own nothing. You search for me, nothing comes up. Nothing. Like literally nothing. Now, I want to introduce you guys to my structure, and if it makes sense for you, I'll direct you to guys that do this. So basically, I have a trust, okay, and it's a family trust. So my wife is in there, I'm in there, and my kids are in there. Why do I have a trust? If anything happens to me today, my trust lives on. That's why people like Sister John Rhodes Foundation still exists up until today, because of the structure that they had. The moment you have a trust, none of my assets are registered in the trust. They are registered in the company. It's a better tax efficient in a company than in a trust. But my shareholding of the company is in the trust. Now, I am going to do business. Now, Kathy, this is where it touches you now. I'm going to do business in the company. So I'm going to register a company, and my property that I'm going to buy belongs to the company. Now, I do this for multiple reasons. As a person, you have limitation in terms of borrowing money at some point. But as a company, remember the banking system is actually designed to borrow companies' money, create businesses. So if you are living in a company, it basically means that your company can either borrow more, or your assets are in a company. Now it doesn't matter where you stay or where you're from. Your company can do business in India, right? We see all these multinational companies, and your company can do business here. So which means now all of a sudden you've become a global citizen via a company. And getting permits into all of these countries, the bigger your balance sheet or the bigger your company is, the easier it is for you as the director to get permits, business permits, and all of those other nice things that comes with it, right? And you can fuel that with your business that you're going to start off, and borrowing becomes easier. Opening up a bank account becomes easier, because now you're no longer talking about a bank account, but you're talking to a business now. When you approach the bank to say to you, opening up a bank account for a business, the conversation is very different as to a person, and the regulations is very much different, or the requirements. I hope that makes sense for you. But maybe Kathy could be saying, well, Taurai, I've already done this already in my personal capacity, then what? I am going to drop an email here of my legal lady, and she will help you in setting you up. Elise at Frostbit. Okay, just drop an email there. And then Muzi, you can drop my email address a little bit later. I prefer that those that are wanting help, I direct them to the help so that I don't become the bottleneck to stuff. Okay, cool.
Okay, hopefully that answers that question, Kathy. Thank you very much. Right, so The next question was, how do we get in touch with Taurai? I'm just going to drop his contact details here, the website to the M5 Property Addicts. Would they okay? It would be okay if they send emails to the info one on M5, yeah?
Yeah, I just dropped my email address there. So in the chat, so that's okay. You can drop me up an email. And if we need to, if it's a service, so my business is an ecosystem, right? And if it's something that you're looking for, I will direct you to any of my partners that do any of these things directly, and then they'll sort you out. I try to have very little interaction on what I don't know.
Makes sense. Right. I've got Pumlani who says, Taurai, I currently have 3 properties in Jos. I would like to know how best to get cash flow from these, please.
Say that on again, Muzi. I lost you.
Yeah, it's I currently have 3 properties in Joburg. I would like to know how to best cash flow from these.
Okay. So basically, you bought 3 properties at the moment, and none of them are cash flowing. That's what it means, right? Well, there's a number of things that you can do if you are in a circumstance like this one. So I'm going to generalize it. But for me, I don't buy properties that don't cash flow from the beginning. So I wouldn't do that. The first one is that consider doing Airbnb. That's the first one. So short-term living, generally, the rate is slightly higher. And by the way, short-term doesn't necessarily mean that you're then going to book in people every other second day. You can do short-term, but your minimum requirement could be 30 days or even 60 days. And there's people that would rent a place like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that maybe you can also, depending on where the property is, if it's a freestanding property, what do I mean by freestanding property? A house that's on its own and you have full control of it. You can maybe build on, so that's an example. So you create more living space, but obviously you need to do the numbers before to see that you're going to be making a profit out of that. If it is in a sectional title, so for some of you who've been to South Africa, sectional title just basically means you are in a form of flats or complex. Complex means it's a normal house, but you're in a gated area. That becomes a little bit challenging because now you've got a big brother to ask for permission, and generally there's no room anyway to do that. What would I do if I'm in that position now? Well, I would look at what is the value of my properties, 3 properties that I've got, Pumlani, right? And if it is all 3 million rand, I'm just giving a thumbs up here, right? 3 properties, 1 million rand each. If I'm to sell that and deploy the same amount of money into a different asset, would I cash flow? So that's a business decision now. The answer is yes, I'll sell and I'll deploy the money elsewhere. Or can I refinance, which is my favorite one? Can I refinance or can I take a loan on the first 3 properties, the 3 million, so the bank can easily give you 2.45 million, somewhere there, and you then go and buy cash flowing properties. So which means that your first 3 properties are not cash flowing, but you've got tenants that are paying off your debt. So that's a win. But now your second ones that you're going to be buying, your second set of properties, the next 3, with your 2.5, then you want to make sure that they are very good deals, right? That they're going to cash flow and you are not also over leveraging yourself. And you can, from a book perspective, you are cash flowing. I hope that makes sense. So all sits in the portfolio. At the end of the day, they're making profit. But the 3, they are not. But the other 3 that you know bought, or maybe the other 2 that you bought with 2.4, the profit is high so that they can carry these three as well. You know, that's kind of like how I would play around with it. I'm a big advocate of holding assets rather than selling, because the mathematics after 10 years is just amazing, because properties double up in 10 or so years. So from a balance sheet perspective, you want to keep them.
Fabulous. Completely agree with that concept, Taurai. That's something that I would recommend as well, even in the UK, guys. So thanks for that question, Pumilani. The next one is from Farai. Farai says, thanks, TJ, a powerful testimony and drive. My question is, as a diaspora resident, what are the requirements to get lending from a South African bank to buy a property in South Africa?
I think we probably answered that question earlier on. So life is complicated when you're a person doing a business as a person. So I want to introduce you guys to something that I teach my guys quite a lot. When you jump into anything, consider it as a game. So I'm going to give you an example. By the way, I'm happily married. So I'm going to take an example to Kathy, because Kathy asked me the question earlier on. So me and Kathy, let's assume we are a thing. Because Kathy and I are new, I'm going to consider our relationship now as a game. Kathy has rules, I have rules. If our rules, if Kathy understands my rules, that when I get home, I need food and I need to bath and what, those are my rules. Kathy understands that. It basically means that the relationship from my side, I understand it, because I'm understanding the rules of the game. When Kathy is upset, I know that Kathy, I do not have to speak to her because she's upset. So I'm understanding the rules of the game from her perspective. Now you could be wondering what is Taurai going on about the rules of the game. The rules of the game matters in everything that you're going to do, because if you understand the rules of the game, you play by the rules of the game. So a lot of us, we are in a space where we are in the diaspora and we want to do business and we go as a person. Now, the rules of a person are very much different than a diaspora. So in South Africa, the rules of the game is favor the local person who is South African because of their history, and put pressure on the diaspora that they should pay up to 50% for deposits and everything else. But hold on. We also want the government, this is the government, we also want businesses to come in and invest in our countries. And the requirements are much lenient. So what do? You understand the rules of the game and you play with the rules of the game. In this case, what are the rules of the game? Rather go with the business, because the business is more favorable. Once you get into the favorable of the business, then buying land, it's a South African company. But you are a diaspora, so does it matter? No, it's not you who's buying it. Who's buying it? It's the company. It's a local company. Can you register a company once you're overseas? Oh, yes. They promote that all the time because they want investors to come in. Any country wants investors. So playing by the rules of the game is extremely important. And then it also gives you the edge of understanding the rules and the tools that you can use. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. So Farah, if you're there, if you can clarify just by dropping in the chat if that made sense and your question has been answered. I think it's a great question, by the way. Fantastic answer as well. So I know a lot of people are now thinking maybe we should register companies in South Africa and buy land and properties. Awesome, awesome. I think you touched on the answer to this next question, but I'll ask it anyway. I love how it's been presented, play of letters and words. So how is SA in South Africa? So the element of service accommodation or Airbnb, how is that market or industry in South Africa?
Yeah, so so I'm going to drop in my legal PA on here, Muzi, and she can help with things, simple things like opening up companies and any legal matters. Hannah Lee, she works for me in a company that we got that's called Taurai Jack. So she will help you guys with that. Yeah, so that's number one. For those people that are wanting to go that route, she will help you guys out. All right, service accommodation. Is it a big thing in South Africa? Yes, it is. Where? Everywhere. South Africans are very interesting people. So we are very close. Though, so we've got this a percentage of the people that are really like living first world country concepts. So you get people that live in service accommodation all the time, right? And it's not for holiday destinations alone. It can be in normal residence and things like that. So remember, South Africa is the hub of Africa, kind of like. So you got foreigners coming through from Africa who are coming in to stay here for a season. Then you've got the Europeans and the Americans that are also coming here, staying here for a season. You've got that market. And you've got the local market as well, right? So it really depends on what you are chasing for in terms of clientele. So if you're looking for holiday making, clientele, then you want to be in the holiday, kind of like we've got holiday cities like Durban, Cape Town. They very much are geared around holidays. And then the same places as well could be very much geared around business. So it depends, but the market is strong for that. You can check in. I think the first place you can check in is around Airbnb to see the demand and basically what I do. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I went into a small town to start a development. And obviously I wanted accommodation. I wanted to stay there. And I realized that there was 3 properties that were on Airbnb in that little town. And they were charging about 5,000 Rand, right? For a minimum of 3 nights. Now that's ridiculous because normally it's around about 600-700. So I'm like, hold on, why is that? And I realized it's just only the 3 of them. And the 3 of them, they are all hosted with 1 person. So 3 properties, 1 host. And I then started tracking that. And I realized this was in June. She was fully booked up until around about 2022 February. The only other opening that was there. So what does that tell me? Every week, I'll go and check. So by you checking, you are tracking. What's the demand like? Because Airbnb is not going to give you a report, right? It's like, this is where the demand is. No, they're not. So you track with the people that are there. But is Airbnb the only short-term living? No, there's multiple ones that you can also do. So I started looking at those and I realized actually there was nobody. So what have I done? I've just bought 10 pieces of land in that area. And the next year I am building 10 properties. All of the 10, of the 10, 3, they're going to become Airbnb. And the others I am going to sell them. It's in a Gulf estate in a very small town. So it caters for people that are coming from Johannesburg, Pretoria, for holiday making over weekends. And that's how I find business as well sometimes. So it's a thing as well here as well. Yeah.
Fabulous. That's really good to hear. Which we I think a lot of us actually already knew this. From conversations that I have in the UK, quite a lot of people are intrigued by the concept of Airbnb and how well it works in South Africa, to a point where we want to create that business in South Africa, even though we're over here. So it's good to hear from someone who's there actually running the business to confirm that the demand is there. So thanks for pointing that out. I've been told that I missed a question, so I'm just going to go back. James Msongela's asked the question, and I'm pretty sure that's a name that you actually know well, Taurai. So I currently work with a life coach as recommended by Taurai himself in a module on one of his courses, which is great. It has fast-tracked me on my property journey. Can you speak on the benefits and power of getting a coach, please?
Oh.
I know that's like a whole day conversation, that one.
Yeah. So there's round about 3 things in life that is really important to us as human beings. And unfortunately, we don't pay attention to any of them. The first one is parenting. For those of us who are parents, there is no school for parenting. I think there should be. That's my view, because it's important. There is no school for, then the second one is money. There is no school for money. I think there should. And there is no school of doing life. I think there should be. That's my personal view. Now, all of these 3 things that I speak of kind of like mold us as individuals. If you master any of those 3 things, you are set for life. Now, you can decide. So let's define what coaching is, because there's coaching and mentoring. Those 2 are 2 different things. I don't coach, I mentor people. My wife coaches people. So let's define the difference. A coach is someone else who's going to sit with you and they're going to help you process what's holding you back as an individual. So let's speak to Mike. Mike, he's got a problem, and his problem is he can't find deals. That's his problem. But the reality is that Mike is able to find deals online, but he's never just picked up the phone to actually call and go and view. Does he need a mentor or does he need a coach? That's a coach problem. Because Mike is afraid to pick up the phone. It's a fear. The coach is going to help you to move out of your fear with different techniques that they use. The fear could be maybe of a past event. The fear could be maybe of you just scared. The fear could be maybe you don't have the money, so you're thinking of what could happen if they ask you certain questions. So it's a fear thing. It's a you problem. It's here in the heart and here in the head, right? So it's a bit of psychology, it's a bit of NLP, whatever, all of those things. Life coaching. Then comes through the mentor. I don't care how you feel. I don't care how you think of yourself. As a mentor, I'm going to take you to a place and show you this is a pencil. This is how you sharpen it. You sharpen it. Did you see me sharpen it? Good. Sharpen it. You get good mentors who are going to baby you. I am not that mentor. I'm a hard mentor. And my guys who are in my program, they know that. I have no mercy on anyone. The only merciful person that I have is the one that is changing their own life, whose bank account is changing. Full stop. So I'm going to push you hard to sharpen it. That's the result that I'm looking for, because as a mentor, my result is driven on output, not have you changed here. I'm an output guy. That's mentor. And that's the difference between a coach and a mentor. So what comes first? I see a coach every second week. Why? My business takes a knock all the time. All the time. There's something that goes wrong all the time. So I need to process the emotions that have happened in the business. So I see my coach once every second week. My team members are not easy people to work with. So I need to go and process so that I can forgive and forget them. Right? And emotionally, I am good. When you're emotionally stable, you can push harder when you're emotionally stable. When you got an emotional baggage, you're working within the emotion, so it's wearing you down. So the execution becomes less. Right? We all know people that are having problems at home, you can see there's problems at home. So I see my coach, the more problems I'm having, the more frequent I am processing with my coach. Right? And I see my mentor once every week. Why? Because I'm a young CEO. There's a lot that I don't know. So every Thursday for 2 hours, I meet with my mentor and we have a different topic every week. It might be an HR conversation, it's a finance conversation, it's a culture conversation, all of those things. Because my business is slightly big now from where I was before. I've never been a CEO before. Right? So I hope it makes sense. So I'm doing both at the same time because of this is who I am. Now, for you, you might want to say, I have no emotional baggage and you just need a mentor. Or maybe, yes, I've got stuff and I can deal with it. So it's a stop, it's a start and a stop, and then you get into a mentor. We're all different. So you need to figure out yourself. There's no answer for that. You need to figure out yourself first. When you figure out yourself, then you seek the help. When you seek the help, you start winning.
I think that is really good. That's really good. So the difference between a coach and a mentor and which one comes first, dependent on what position you're in, I think that is really well answered. And there's a great question as well from James. Now, look, we would love to actually continue having this conversation pretty much all night. And I think we've taken quite a lot of your free Sunday. We have to say, I appreciate you actually coming out here and sharing your knowledge, sharing your story. And on behalf of everyone else who's joined and those that are going to be watching on YouTube as well, much appreciated for your time, Taurai. Thank you very much. We're just going to bring this to an end as well. So thanks to the guys that have actually joined. And I'm going to stop the recording. I know there's a few more other questions that other people had asked. We might have to actually send them directly because we are supposed to finish at 7 o'clock, guys. And I know people would have to shoot off. So thank you very much. And if you